Buenos días. Como parte del programa del Séptimo Congreso de Seguridad de las Mercancías en la Cadena Logística, incluimos el tema del impacto que tiene la carga contaminada en Europa. Con este fin, logramos un espacio para conversar con dos expertos europeos especialistas en la materia. Para ello, agradecemos muchísimo la participación de Niels van der Sanden, subcomandante de la Policía Portuaria de Rotterdam, quien tiene más de 23 años de experiencia en la División Regional de Policía de Rotterdam, por lo que cuenta con amplia experiencia en investigación criminal, intervenciones significativas y aplicación de la ley. Niels está en frecuente contacto y trabajo conjunto con líneas navieras, así como con la aduana de Rotterdam, el Centro de Información Integral de la Policía, la Unidad Fiscal y Aduanera, así como en colaboración internacional para la seguridad en los puertos. De verdad que es un honor para nosotros contar con su participación. Niels impulsó el enfoque europeo sobre empresas y líneas navieras de alto riesgo en una coalición de 6 países y es uno de los fundadores de la colaboración Hamburgo, Amberes y Rotterdam. Él visitó varios países de América Central y de Sudamérica también en estos últimos años y es muy consciente de la urgencia de colaborar con las fuerzas del orden en esta región. Well, welcome, Niels. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Buenos días.
Y también nosotros vamos a tener la conversación el día de hoy con otro de los expertos que hemos conseguido para ustedes, con la participación de Piet, quien forma parte del Consejo Asesor de Norfrost GmbH, que es un operador líder de almacenes frigoríficos alemán. También está en el Consejo de Marson, que es una empresa especializada en transporte. Es además fundador y copropietario de Quai Connect, una solución digital integrada para el despacho de aduanas. En su carrera profesional, él ha ocupado diversas posiciones. Por ejemplo, fue oficial de la Real Naval de Países Bajos, también fue gerente general de terminales de contenedores de Europa, director de la cadena de suministro de la terminal de Kolsterboer, y ha dirigido campañas antidrogas en almacenes de congelados y estiva en el puerto de Rotterdam. Good morning, Piet, and thank you very much to be with us today too.
Thank you very much. Really looking forward and pleasure to meet you.
I'm sure that our audience are really interested in this conversation. I will start with Niels first. Niels, what is the general current situation faced by the authorities at the Rotterdam port about the drug that is introduced into the legal cargo and received from Central America?
Well, I can talk for hours and hours about the question you just posted. At first, I would like to say, as a child of the city of Rotterdam, as a citizen of the city of Rotterdam, I'm super proud of my port, of our port. I think Piet will agree. It's of valid importance for Dutch economy, and it is well known for its good infrastructure. But there is a but. We face our difficulties in the port right now because legal structures, good legal structures, because of the speediness of the process and because of the wide scale of the port, mean that a lot of criminal groups are infiltrated in our port. Unfortunately, we suffer a lot of corruption. And regarding the seaport police perspective and regarding the red line of your question, the import of cocaine, unfortunately, we seize a lot of cocaine coming over via South America to our port. Not the largest part of the cocaine that's being imported to the Netherlands is consumed in the Netherlands. It's a widespread problem in Europe. And if I may, in addition to this question, this is why I think it's so important for me to be attending this meeting, to have the possibility to talk to you and all other people in this Congress. Because I can only be humble regarding the European position if you look at it into the South American perspective, because the usage of cocaine, the way most of the European countries have a lot of inhabitants who use the cocaine, we cause troubles over at your side. So I'm regarding the Rotterdam perspective, regarding the port of Rotterdam perspective, I'm more than willing to share our insights, our thoughts, and more than willing to cooperate with Costa Rica and other Central and South American countries, because the situation over here is worrisome, but we also see you, and we see how difficult the situation over there is.
Well, in general terms, what is the European authorities' strategy about to detect or seize the malicious cargo arriving from Central America and South America in this moment? I know that probably you can be so specific, but in general terms.
In general terms, I think Europe is stepping up regarding this topic. I think a roadmap is being created in which several European countries are collaborating right now and stating there needs to be an equal level playing field. We need to collaborate by creating that equal level playing field and try to tackle this multi-headed monster altogether. Because if a specific approach in Rotterdam works, then maybe that specific approach should also be applicable for Hamburg or for Algeciras or for Gioia Tauro in Italy or for Marseille. So Europe is stepping up. We are working together. We are getting to learn each other more and more, law enforcement wise, but also public-private partnership wise. But it's only since a couple of years. But the collaboration is increasing. And I think Europe, this is in addition to my previous answer, Europe is seeing what is going on in South and Central America. And in my opinion, we are stepping up, but we need to step up more.
Well, obviously, Europe is one of our principal markets for our exportations. What do you think about the situation of specifically of Costa Rica and this issue in this moment?
Well, to be quite honest, I was thinking about this when I drove home after work today, and the situations are totally different. We're on totally different continents, but to be quite honest, the port of Rotterdam and Costa Rica have some similarities, because you are not producing country, but you have a bottleneck function. Because, for instance, Puerto Limon is one of the last exits for vessels to eventually go to Europe. The port of Rotterdam has, in a reverse way, the same issue. We're not a producing country. Not all cocaine is being used in the Netherlands, but we are the bottleneck because most of the large vessels enter via the largest port of Europe, my port, the port of Rotterdam. So there are a lot of similarities between the Netherlands and Rotterdam and Costa Rica. But what I saw of recent, what I was talking about with, for instance, our ambassador, Ms. Piet, and other people from the Foreign Affairs Department, that the situation in Costa Rica right now is very worrisome. The increase of violence and the difficulties you face because of the fact that you have that bottleneck function. Well, I've been to Costa Rica last year. I've met you there, and to be quite honest, that hurts, because you have such a fantastic and beautiful country, and it should be about pura vida and not about this violence and not about the cocaine issues. But still, so we both have the bottleneck function, but we see that the increase of violence and the difficulties you face, well, you can't compare it to the Netherlands situation.
Yes, this year the Costa Rican government authorities visit the Rotterdam port. I think that they were with you. What did you discuss with them during this visit?
Well, we have discussed a lot together, as I said earlier, with our ambassador, Ms. Piet. We spoke to your president, which was an absolute honor, because what I've learned from him is that Costa Rica is doing everything within its power to try to tackle this issue. several measures are being taken, and I saw a very brave leader who wants to protect his country at all costs. And I know for a fact that, for instance, regarding the scanning process, a process in the Netherlands that's being conducted by customs, that you are increasing the scanning, that you are increasing resilience at ports. And that's good. So we discussed a lot. Obviously, we have discussed a lot of things about the difficult situation, but we have also talked about how we can collaborate, how customs can collaborate with Costa Rica law enforcement, how police can collaborate with Costa Rica law enforcement. So we got to know each other. We talked about the bad things, so to speak, but I think we are allies for the future.
Yeah, well, the country start to do the 100% scanning in all the cargo this year, the 100 in all the containers. But we still have the news that there are drugs coming to Europe, and the authorities still are catching drugs in the port.
Yeah.
How is the experience of the other countries? What is the best way to do it? Because everybody was thinking that maybe 100% of scanning would be the solution, but it's challenging.
It's absolutely challenging. I'm so sorry that I misunderstood your first question, but no, it's a very valid question. And I think not only for Costa Rica, but for several other Latin American countries, this is a really difficult topic. Because I think globally we should be better at scanning containers, obviously. But it's only one part of a lot of other barriers that should be taken. And as I said to you last year at the Congress, and I still believe in this approach, several systems globally, logistical systems, and therefore I'm so grateful that I can talk to all the participants of this Congress, because I know there are a lot of private partners also attending this meeting. Several logistical processes are so good, are so speedy, and we earn so much money because of this, but they are broken. Criminal groups, OCGs, misuse those systems so easily, and we need to fix those systems. And we can only do that on one way, that is by collaborating. And Piet knows this by heart. Maybe we will talk about this later. The government and private parties, we should collaborate more to fix those systems. We need, from a police perspective, we need to catch criminals. I want to seize assets. I want to hurt them. But eventually, I also want to fix broken systems. So it's not just scanning. It's fixing logistical systems. It's building resilience in ports. It's building safe environments for all the staff members of the group that is now attending your meeting, at the pineapple plants, at the banana plants, at the truckers. So it's a series of interventions, but obviously scanning is one of the interventions. But I know for a fact that to look into all those images, it takes a lot of time. So for instance, artificial intelligence is, in my opinion, a thing for the future, but this is more a customs thing in the Netherlands. But still, this is a thing we need to develop in the future, that artificial intelligence needs to help us regarding scanning, because I believe in 100% scanning. But if you do it only with men and women, it's an important job, but it's almost impossible with those millions and millions of containers.
It was precisely my last question that you start to answer right now, but I'm going to repeat it. How can the private and public sectors work together in a better way in this transnational effort to have safe routes without drug in the cargo?
I'm so sorry that I was so speedy with my last answer. It's just enthusiasm. I'm just enthusiastic regarding this approach. No, as I said, and Piet and I, we have our history. Piet as a director of a fruit importing company in Rotterdam, who had some issues. Me as a police officer from the Seaport Police, and even though we are two different worlds, even though we have two different perspectives, even though I'm from safety and he's more from an economic perspective, we have found each other. And by joining forces by learning, my team, my detectives learning the logistical system, by Piet learning that safety is not just a helmet and a safety jacket anymore, but safety is more. Safety is fixing your IT, fixing your processes, fixing HR policy. And this is the call that I would make regarding the private sector and the public sector, where you need to get to learn each other. And sometimes you are angry at each other, sometimes you fight, but eventually we need to tackle this issue together. And in my opinion, IT, process, and HR are the three main topics that we should work on together.
Well, thank you very much, Niels, for this first part of our conversation, and thank you for your time. Now I will talk to Piet, Piet Hein, like we were presenting him. He's an expert, and like in a private sector, like a private consultant, I want to start with this question. What do you think is the situation that private companies are facing right now in regarding the risk associated to legal cargo contaminated with drugs?
Well, thank you for your question. And the honest answer to your question is, for the general public, it's simple, a challenge for which is in the port. It's a port-related issue, and the challenge is in the port to cope with. That's strange, but sure. There are some examples, even in the Netherlands, that that inland, past inland service providers are connected to the cocaine import, like a banana ripening company. And but so far, the majority of challenges are handled by customs, the team of Niels, the big container operators, and the empty depots and cold store operators in the direct vicinity of the port, like Rotterdam. The main challenge, the main thing which changed over, I think, 6 years ago when we started the big program, Rotterdam, the Port of Rotterdam Safe Port, where basically that's the action taken by the companies who were infected by the drug trades are standalone. So they did their own actions internally with not a lot of marketing outside, etc. And since the start of the program, I think, which was a good program, it was multifunctional. So we had a team of Niels, we had the customs, we had the port, we had and a lot of private companies acting in that. And we, based on some practical intelligence and actual incidents, we set up some clear guidelines, which give the companies in the port of Rotterdam absolutely a chance to set up a new policy regarding security, regarding safety, and step by step we started that process. And we're not there yet, because it's a never-ending process. You can't stop this process anymore, because basically your counterpart is working constantly to find new routes, new ways into your system, and so yeah, we need to keep on a high alert in this stage.
Yes, in this line, how do you think the actions of drug cartels are evolving or are becoming more sophisticated in terms of logistic, of sending drugs to Europe ports, and how to fight against that?
Well, if you look, and now we zoom in to basically the supply chain. 20 to 15 years ago, the majority of bananas and pineapples were shipped conventionally to Europe. And the pallets were handled direct from the quayside into the warehouse for future distribution. Meaning, after boxing of a banana, the lorry in Costa Rica drove directly to the port, to the quayside, where they were palletized and handled direct into a reef vessel. So the drugs was hidden within the boxes of a full pallet of that banana, and the drugs cartel would only need 1 or 2 operational employees on your side before departure to stuff drugs and simply mark the pallet with an X on the eye or the box. After arrival in the port of Rotterdam, the marked pallet or the box was just spotted by 1 or 2 operational employees, discharge on and set aside just for a couple of unseen moments, and your drug traffic went out. So basically that was 20 to 15 years ago. Currently, the vast majority of bananas and pineapples are shipped with reefer containers. And from packing station, different pallets, different reefer containers are stuffed for different vessels with different destinations. Because basically there are different terminal operators, different vessels calling your ports as well. Meaning, besides the operational staff for actual hiding the drugs into a pallet or a box, the drugs cartel needs intel which pallet, which container, which serial number, and which vessel. Because basically it's a total different supply chain. So after crossing the Atlantic, coming into the port of Rotterdam, different cold store operators, different transport companies are able to pick up the container, strip the pallet, and put the pallet out in a warehouse. So even on this side, the drugs cartel needs to make sure that the contaminated pallet with drugs arrives in an affected warehouse. So the drugs cartel needs simply to infiltrate in many other companies, and basically, and that is my conclusion. Basically, they're setting up a total own network to get their strategy running, and are able to recover the required intel and to manage the different phases in the total supply chain. So that's the main difference over the last, well, I think 10 years or so.
It sounds like, please finish. How to fight against that in a better way?
It ain't easy, and it's a never-ending story. So that is, a lot of companies, and there are a lot of actions already, like security and the tracking of data, the high security standards, not only for IT but for your facility as well. But in my experience, the main drive for really success is the empowerment of your staff, the empowerment of your employees, because basically your employees are the eyes and the ears of any organization, and they need to prevent infiltration. They need to prevent the actual stuffing and the hiding and the handling of the drug shipments. So sure, we can invest a lot of money in IT and in total scaling, etc., which we must. So really be clear. But without the empowerment of your employees, no way. There will always be a routing in to stuff and hide a bag of cocaine into any shipment to Europe. And that is basically my conclusion. You need to set up a clear and transparent empowerment program for your employees. You need to train them. You need to actively involve them in securing the trade lines. And yes, that needs controlling your staff. Yes, that needs setting up strict guidelines. Yes, you need to coach them and make safety a priority. And safety is absolutely more than just a helmet and a jacket. So basically that's, if we want to make a chance, then we really need to empower all staff, because they are working 24/7 in the location where we handle our cargo coming in and going out.
Yeah. In your experience, with all the knowledge that you have, probably the best cases, what can be your recommendation for our audience here in Costa Rica, the owners of the carga and the transport, the companies, of how to work to prevent this infiltration? I know that you were mentioning some things, but I don't know if there are some kind of great experience or business cases that you can recommend how to work with this.
You need to work with. You really need to work with local law enforcement, with your local partners, and see all steps within your company. So that starts with HR. Who do you hire? Do you test them? Do you have any feedback from local government regarding your new hired staff? You need to look at your IT, because basically intel, so it's the information regarding the pallet, the box, the container, the vessel, the seal number, the pickup location and date, etc. So all the information is on need-to-know basis. It doesn't make sense that a lot of people know what pallet are stuffed in what container, because basically, well, only one should know who's making up the bill of lading. So basically, it's a need-to-know basis, and if you start securing that part, you make it worse or a harder challenge for the drugs cartel to get into that information. And the other step is basically looking at your facility, because, well, basically it's you have a lot of partners, you have a lot of suppliers coming and going from your premises as well, on different premises, because that starts at the grower, then to the pack center, then to the haulier, coming to the port, etc. So there are different stages, and the full supply chain should be secured in that sense. So it's multifunctional, and you need to get that step by step.
I will do a parenthesis here to add, Niels, to know if you have something to add to this the topic that Piet is commenting.
Well, I do have something to add, which is a bit of a personal note. Because regarding your question, to be quite honest, I don't want to be an arrogant European that states, well, Central America or South America, or specifically Costa Rica, should be doing this and this and this. Because I've had the honor to see your country. I've been to several other countries in Latin America the past couple of years. And I saw how difficult the situation over there is. I saw the violence. So again, I want to emphasize, I don't want to be arrogant, but still, and this is in line with what Piet said, I think we need to step up our game globally. And I know at this meeting, shippers are attending, shipping lines. I know container terminals are attending. I know large fruit producers, importers, exporters are attending. I know law enforcement is attending, and I need all those groups to step up, because we need to change the logistical system. We need to work closely together. We need to work from a public-private partnership, but also public-wise. From a Costa Rican perspective, I would really like law enforcement to find each other, learn on specific cases, and build barriers at the companies and reach out to the companies, and also the other way around. I know how difficult this is, and again, I want to emphasize, I don't want to sound arrogant, but in the Netherlands, this works. We learn from our cases, and what we learn from our cases, the knowledge we have from those cases, we share with the companies, and we share that on one condition: fix broken systems. And mainly the terminals, the shippers, the fruit importers, and the big companies, but also law enforcement. I think we all need to step up our game, look over our shadow, because I visited your beautiful country, and it hurts to see how much violence there is right now. And I'm not ignorant. I know Europe uses a lot of cocaine. We won't stop. We can't stop the import of cocaine entirely, but we can make it, criminal groups, a lot more difficult, and we can make our societies a lot safer when we do what Piet said. Prevention-wise, logistical fixing-wise, and law enforcement-wise. So that would be my comment.
Okay, I return to Piet, because obviously this thing is costing a lot of money. I mean, it's ruined the reputation of the country with the export, but for the companies, it's costing a lot of money. But what do you think is more important, to invest in things like, for example, adopt new technology to fight this thing, or into that the companies invest more into have a strategic approach to prevent, to trying to stop this thing?
I honestly believe, and I stated that before, that you need to empower your staff, you need to empower your employees. And sure, it's costing a lot of money, but in my experience, and I had two really bad incidents with cocaine, is basically if your company, big or small, is infected, then at the end of the day you go bankrupt, because it's not a safe environment for your staff to work. It's not a safe environment for your family to have your father or mother go to a company that's infected by the narcotic trades. So basically, if you start empowering your staff and do that in line with your customers, with your suppliers, and just start discussing it. And I have a simple suggestion. To suggest it's simple, but the task is bigger. I think from a total supply chain, for all partners in the supply chain, we must simply aim for a drug-free trade certificate, because we have that for ISPS, we have that for the organic trades, we have that even for fair trade, but there is no drug-free trade certification. And in this case, if the general public starts demanding that the bananas and the pineapples into which they buy in the retailers like Albert Heijn or Lidl or in Germany from Edeka, if they start demanding that the pineapple or the banana comes in drug-free, then money is not an issue, because basically then they're willing, like the organic trades, like the fair trade, they're willing to pay an additional X amount on top of the pineapple or on top of the banana. And I think if we start doing that from that perspective, then it flows back, and then everybody in the full supply chain will be able and will be forced to adopt. And I think if together, you're together now anyhow, start thinking about, okay, what does that mean, a drug-free trade, and what does that mean in a certification point of view? Then you can do that step by step. And yes, it's not easy, but together, you all involved today as well, we can set and continue to improve the required standards, and that's basically what you said today will be different next year. And sure, these standards, you need to follow up strict on control and supervision by law enforcement, and then while empowering your employees and putting their safety back on top, step by step, you will come to a drug-free trade line. And I'm really convinced that we can do that. And sure, that will not mean that in Europe there's no cocaine. And sure, there will be all other ways into Europe, but at least then we did our part as best as we can.
Okay, I have another question for both of you. I'm going to start with Niels. What else do you think that can be done to work together from the export-import cargo transportation sector and government authorities? What the aim of of security in the supply chains? What we can do better?
Well, again, you need to reach out to each other. And I think one of the last comments Piet made is something I really like, the drug-free trade certificate. I know how difficult it is. As I said, I've been to Costa Rica. I've seen the difficulties, but still, I know for a fact how hard my friends in law enforcement, my colleagues in customs, how hard they work, how difficult their task is. But still, I hope that the private sector attending this meeting right now and law enforcement eventually will find each other, learn from each other, and sometimes you can argue, sometimes you can dislike each other, but eventually we have to tackle this issue together. So that would be, in general, my best comment, because again, I want to emphasize, I don't want to be the arrogant European that says, well, you need to do this and this and this, and then Costa Rica will be better. I know how difficult it is. But step over your shadow. And for the private sector, some fundamental changes in the logistical process are needed. As Piet said, make fair trade fair trade. Don't make the farmers suffer. And maybe in Europe we need to pay more, but create safe lines and law enforcement. Not just hunt for the criminals, but try to fix broken systems as well. That will be my most important remarks.
Okay. Piet, what else do you think it can be done to work together in a better way?
Well, basically, working together isn't easy, yeah? Because sometimes you're direct competition, sometimes you're hunting for the same supplier or the same partner in crime. But in this case, I think start the conversation, honest, open. We started that roughly 6 years ago, and it wasn't easy. But if Niels needs to help, or I need to help, we will do so. Eh? We can only be supportive in this way, but start the conversation. And from that conversation point, step by step, you see the challenge in your own supply chain from farm to fork. And please do so. Ask for help. Ask for any clear topics where we suffered in the past. We're happy to help. But my best suggestion is start the conversation.
Okay, well, we are almost finishing our conversation, but I want to ask you for a final thought, a final message for our audience here in Costa Rica today in 1 minute each. I will start with you, Piet.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to one Dutch guys via the digital way. Really, I want to repeat myself and say safety is top priority, and start empower your own employees in getting there. Really, that makes sense, and it is the best way to see some effort back.
Perfect. Now is your turn, Niels.
Well, thank you so much. Well, thank you all for having us, for giving us the opportunity to address our vision, so to speak, our Dutch vision to you. Well, from a Netherlands perspective, from a Rotterdam perspective, the situation is worrisome, as I said. We have a lot of corruption in our port, a lot of violence in our city, and I know for a fact that you suffer the same in Costa Rica. We both are bottlenecks, and I believe, regarding everything Piet and I told, that everyone in the private sector and everyone in law enforcement in public sectors, we need to find each other, and we need to try and tackle this multi-headed monster together, in my opinion, and make it OCGs, make it the criminal groups more difficult by fixing the system, but more importantly, and this I fully agree on, Piet, by making and creating safe spaces for all of your staff members. Because if, for instance, data is encrypted, then staff members can't be corrupted because they're useless to OCGs. So that's just a simple example. And next to that, I wish Costa Rica all the best, because it's a fantastic country. I hope the violence will decrease, and eventually it will be about pura vida again.
Well, again, thank you very much, you both, for your time to share your knowledge with our audience. We really appreciate your participation in our Congress. We hope to see you here soon, but for today, I think it was a great space to have this conversation. Thank you very much. Y con ustedes volvemos ya pronto con el resto de la agenda que tenemos aquí en el Congreso. Ya volvemos.